Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth Frost and I work for New South Wales Department of Primary Industries based at Tocal Agricultural College. I work for Department of Primary Industries as a technical specialist for honeybees, and my topic today will be covering the AgriFutures managed National Honeybee Genetic Improvement Program, also known as Plan Bee. So what you're seeing here is the start of our exciting 2021-22 season. So I'm there on the left of your screen, just taking a back break after we've delivered our research hives to almond pollination with our research partner OLAM, which is Australia's largest almond corporate farm. And horticulture industries are invested in honeybee genetic improvement program because of the honeybees' vital importance as a pollinator for their crop yield and for food security in Australia. So through this presentation, I'll be giving you a run through of Australia's National Honeybee Genetic Improvement Program, which we lovingly call Plan Bee. With the team, we've got a broad project team and funders, and the program is funded through a federal grant. So a federal grant in this program called Rural Research and Development for Profit. So those are paired with research programs that increase the profitability of Australia's rural industries, beekeeping being one vitally important one to Australia's food security through pollination services. So when honeybees are going to flowers, they're not only collecting nectar to make you honey, they're transferring pollen from one flower to the other, which is the plant's sex cells, fertilizing those flowers, and all conditions going right, producing a fruit, nut, vegetable, legume, oil seed, a lot of tasty things for man and beast. So we've got our program contributors and managers here, and I'm from Department of Primary Industries, neatly housed here at Tocal College, which is a registered training organization and a leader in development and delivery of the Certificate 3 in beekeeping. So with our program, we'll go wide first. I'll zoom out and tell you a bit about it from this slide from my colleague, Dr. Nadine Chapman at Sydney Uni. And then we'll go into the specifics about what is the actual problem here. So the point of this program is to develop standardized methods for beekeepers of all scales. So those with few hives that might want to raise queens for themselves, those sideliners or commercial, small scale commercial to large scale commercial that have some risk to their business related to queen bees, access, queen quality, their own production in their business and how queens affect that. So we've got a lot of different arms to this project, and where Department of Primary Industries and Tocal College is involved is around developing those standardized methods with Sydney Uni and with commercial beekeepers and sideliner and recreational beekeepers that have given us feedback on what is important to them with their hives. So the database is developed through University of New England, and that's our decentralized model where any queen breeder can get involved with the program, Plan B, and they can put in data that is meaningful for them about their own honeybees. And if there's enough data tied to information about those queens, pedigree if you like, so what at least were the source of that queen's, what was her mother, genetic source. If we know that, enough production information, health information, and pedigree information, then we can generate what's known as an estimated breeding value. So that gives a beekeeper an unbiased view of the quality of that queen compared to her relatives within a population of honeybees. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. What is our problem? The problem is we want queens. We want queens. Oh, can't really see it. We need queens. We want queens. They keep our hives productive and keep us getting honey or income from our favorite invertebrate livestock. What's our problem? Queens. When do we want them? Now. Just kidding. We want them within ideally the time that express posts should take to our premise, work or home, or by pickup. So in these trying pandemic times, obviously, Australia Post is under the pump. Many packages are taking much longer because of the higher volume. So that's another pinch point for the beekeeping industry that existed before before the pressures of the pandemic on all of our infrastructure here. So this is one issue, but basically the program of Plan B was implemented because we identified that there's a real risk to industry, both from access to queens and access to quality queens for beekeepers. Because as we know, the queen is the engine room really of the colony. She's the mother of all the bees in the colony, and she provides all the genetics that colony shows to you in different ways. It could be the temperament of the colony, the ability to produce large or small amounts of honey. Is it susceptible to different health stressors, pathogens such as chalk brood, European foul brood? Is it susceptible to more small hive beetle than others? Some bees fight small hive beetle, others are just like, oh yeah, small hive beetle, come on in to the hive. So we know our problem, we've got a queen issue. Now, who wants them? Well, it turns out a whole lot of beekeepers potentially do. New South Wales is the biggest beekeeping state in Australia, and as of October 8th, we have over 13,000 registered beekeepers. And with those beekeepers come a number of hives. So between recreational concession licensees, and commercial beekeepers, there are over 370,000 beehives registered in New South Wales. And that's a low number because, as we know, healthy hives expand. They swarm, or the beekeeper manages those hives to prevent swarming, but has to relieve the population some way. Typically that happens through splitting a hive. So we know our issue: access to quality queens in good time and in good health, and also availability of queens. So Australia is a very large country, and it has these strategic kind of beekeeping, classical beekeeping areas, which are constrained typically by climate and access to services. So our high population areas typically follow kind of where our beekeeping areas are, where it's kind of, you know, follow the water, follow the flowers for bees and beekeepers. There was a nice paper made on studying the pneumatic movements of commercial beekeepers. And so this diagram from the paper cited there just shows where most commercial beekeepers go through their season. So our larger squares, Robinvale, Warwick, Stanthorpe, those have major pollination events. And also, I think we've got Keith, which is a major pollination event for lucerne. Robinvale is almonds, go figure. The largest livestock movement, mass migration movement in Australia is to almond pollination. It's not cattle movement, it's not cattle mustering, it's bee mustering. So that's just, I suppose, a point of interest to show that these locations that are traveled very commonly by beekeepers. Typically, they don't have a lot of queen breeders there, and we have very few queen breeders actually in the nation. So they all want queens, but why is that? Well, we asked them, and we assumed certain things, and we wanted to test that. So my colleague, Dr. Chapman from Sydney Uni, and I, we surveyed you guys, and we found we presented through this heat map that Nadine put together, that there are traits that are valuable for beekeepers at different scales. So you can see the blue, the deeper blue squares are those that rated highest for traits or characteristics of a beehive that beekeepers really wanted to see and increase in their operation. And those squares in the reddish or pink were the lesser valued by our survey respondents. So as you're looking through, you can see honey production is the highest ranked trait. Brood pattern is another high ranked trait. So in your brood nest, what's the quantity of viable brood? So that pattern of, sealed brood, you can see it's very solid, or if it's patchy, it could be a disease issue, or it could be a queen issue. Either she's getting older and she has less sperm to fertilize those eggs with, or she could be poorly mated. So she didn't mate with a high enough quantity of drones. Sydney Uni researchers found that some queens could mate with as many as 50 different drones, and that is a vital component of their reproductive strategy to impart, I suppose, that diversity of traits and chromosomes that the drones are bringing into the hive. So the more diverse mates a queen has with different drones, the greater chance that her brood viability will be very high, which translates to increased population, which can translate to increased honey production, though you can select for honey production as well. So we'll get further into that. If you're looking at this heat map and you're thinking, oh, well, I wouldn't have rated that such, guess what? Good news for you. I have the solution. Whip your phone out, get your camera open, and take a picture of this QR code, because we've got another survey open and we would love your feedback. So Plan B is only as good as the feedback we get on any number of things that we're studying with our reference population. So whether you've got, your one hive for honey production and your garden pollination requirements, or you've got 10,000 hives that you take to almonds, you take to honey production, you take to apple pollination, etc. We want to hear from you. So please copy this QR code and you'll be taken straight to our survey. So we're looking to get a lot of beekeeper insights and knowledge about what traits are of value to you. So thanks so much for taking that action for us. And on that queen subject, which is what this is all about, is how do we get them? So not only do we have an access, I suppose, issue with transport, quality is an issue, and a lot of people maybe are getting started in beekeeping and don't know how to get them. And the answer is pretty much old school. Word of mouth is still kind of king in the beekeeping industry. But the not-for-profit Australian Honeybee Industry Council and Australian Queen Bee Breeders Association, they both are looking at, we'll just move that, so that's Australian Queen Bee Breeders Association logo. They are looking at getting a list of Australian queen breeders in one place for ease of the customer accessing those suppliers. Follow on from that, what is a good queen? Is it a black queen? Is it a yellow queen? Is it a queen whose colony produces this brood nest that has nice ring of food, or this harbor bridge pattern of food over the brood? Or is it a queen that produces wall-to-wall brood? The answer, as happens many times in beekeeping, is it depends. So we can select for all these things. Color is a selectable trait. Brood pattern, brood orientation in the brood nest is a selectable trait. We want to know what you value. So in case you didn't get that QR code last time, this is your last chance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so with Plan B, this is basically our goals. So Nadine's got them starting from the top. Do training, defining your objectives. So what are your top traits? Define how many times a season you're going to evaluate those traits. Define your queen identifiers. All of these elements to our program, Nadine and I have presented in a thorough recorded workshop that's available to you online, and I'll give you those links at the end of this presentation. But they all are explained in our Plan B breeding manual, which you see on the left there. And this is a document that's in real time. In real time, it's a living document. So we want beekeepers' feedback on this. So please download it for free from AgriFutures website. If you just search up Plan B manual, you'll be sure to find this. It's either a free download or you can buy a hard copy from AgriFutures. So do let us know what you think about it. It explains all the traits that we've outlined in the survey, how you would select for them and record in a standardized way so that we know that we're comparing apples to apples. With that first step, it's so critical, education, and that can have many different pathways. So at Tocal College, we're a registered training organization, so we develop these resources, these ag guides, on different topics in beekeeping that set you up for success in beekeeping. So with queen bee breeding, we've now, with Plan B, leveraged the investment that we've got from the federal government, state government, horticulture industries, and a few beekeeping, private beekeepers to build a honey shed and a bee training facility. So this season, pending COVID travel restrictions and vaccination status, we will be able to deliver commercially relevant training out of a commercial scale honey processing facility geared towards queen breeding and nutrition work. So we really welcome you on that site once we're able to have visitors. But if you don't have the means or the time to attend training, I would suggest to you that you have the power to train yourself. Many beekeepers live in remote areas of Australia and just can't set the time aside or the expense aside to travel to training. And I know a beekeeper in the middle of nowhere that train themselves in artificial insemination of queen bees by a YouTube video. So anybody can do it. It takes the will and practice. I encourage you guys, grab those resources, whether you have a mentor, you work for a queen breeder or beekeeper, give it a shot. With queen breeding, practice makes perfect, glasses may be necessary. So what you're seeing in this image is a larval transfer or grafting. So we graft that less than 24-hour-old larvae into what's known as a cell cup, and we raise that in a specific colony that we've managed, and we're feeding in a way that stimulates it to raise queen bees for us. So top right, you're seeing those cells. A couple days later, they've been feeding them royal jelly. You can see that nice little pool of royal jelly up the top of the cells now, and we keep them oriented down this point so that the queen that's developing inside that cocoon, that queen cell as we call it, isn't getting damaged. So you can learn on your own, but it's extremely valuable as well to get a mentor or work for somebody. What set me up for success really was after I studied insects at uni, I decided, well, I need practical experience. So I worked for queen breeders in California, catching queens, caging queens, fixing up nukes. I worked for honey producers in North Dakota. I came to Australia and I worked for the Horners briefly, extracting honey. I worked part of queen season for Graham Beach in Queensland. And I went over to WA and worked for queen breeder Ron Clark and got an insight into Department of Ag WA with Dr. Rob Manning. So there are many pathways into beekeeping and to enhance your beekeeping knowledge. Slavi Nenov, our bee manager at DPI for Plan Bee, is another classic example. He threw himself into industry and he's worked for many different commercial beekeepers in Tasmania, in New Zealand, in Bulgaria, and he's a critical component of this project. So I'd recommend to anybody, get in the ring. If you're thinking, maybe I want to have a beekeeping business, the best learning I had was working for different people, and it just opens your eyes to so many different things. So back to Plan B project. This will help you once you've got your queen breeding steps kind of nailed out. You'll be able to take that next step into points of interest around not just queen production, the act of producing a queen from that fertilized female larvae up to hatching from her queen cell and mating in her nucleus colony and checking her quality post-mating. You'll be able to look at things like, what traits do I like about hives? How will I record them? And I'd suggest this manual as a great starting point to you to give you some guidelines on how to record these different traits. So after you've downloaded it and trialed a few different traits, we'd love to hear your feedback on how you went with the manual, because we will be updating it with what we've learned ourselves and from commercial beekeepers who have trialed the manual. So this is one of our data sheets. That's kind of one of our day-to-day data sheets. So vital that you have hive identifiers. So each individual hive, once you've collected a record, you can track it back. So a bit like traceback for disease. We want to know our queen status, population, because population affects how much honey that can be produced out of a hive, queen origin, basically what's her pedigree, and you change your data sheet to suit. So you can work with Nadine or myself, and we'll tailor a data sheet for the traits that you want to record and select for in your operation. With breeding, back to that, that mating quality, I just stress anyone wanting to get into the nitty gritty of queen breeding, it's not rocket science, it's just hard work over a lot of time. So work on getting out any kinks from your queen production side, that setting up cell starters, finishers, mating nucleus colonies and mating yards, get that kind of ironed out, and then think, okay, what can I do next? What information can I collect that will help me in my goals for my beekeeping? And the world's your oyster at that point. Once you kind of gain this knowledge and you're really moving, there's so much to learn in beekeeping, as we know, that you could spend, 3 lifetimes doing it. So if you want to know more about queens and drones, I'll have my email at the end of this presentation, and I've got this nifty little paper just reviewing all that we know about queen and drone fertility traits, because with other livestock, they've advanced, selection on production traits, like in dairy cattle, for example, milk production, or health traits such as heat stress traits, disease resistance traits, and then also reproduction traits. So we're looking to learn from what these other livestock industries have really ran with to improve their overall industry productivity and really business viability, run with that, and see what we can translate over to beekeeping. So if you're interested in that paper, it covers a number of different topics relevant to queen production and quality. The age of the larvae is so important for our queen productivity potential. Ovarial quantity is linked to the age of that larvae that you graft. So the longer she's fed royal jelly, the more producing units she develops, potentially larger spermatheca as well. That's that sperm storage organ on the left. And her capacity to mate is greater the larger the queen she is. The more stronger flyer, larger spermatheca, she can store more sperm, she can have the opportunity to lay more viable offspring. Drones as well. We'll see if I can play this, this video for you. Drone o'clock at Tocal College. Drones are a vital component of Plan B. Obviously, if a queen's mating with up to 50 drones, we're going to need thousands and thousands and thousands of drones. So not only is queen rearing important, but drone rearing is just so vital to success as a queen breeder. So to wrap this up, basically our issue is with queens. We need to know for ourselves, what's a quality queen, what's our queen rotation, if we need that, if we want access to queens, who's available to sell them. And we really don't have a lot of queen producers or breeders in Australia. So I'd encourage anyone who's interested in this, search for those resources, mentors, work for a queen breeder, look at our Plan B manual or Queen Breeding Ag Guide, seek out those people that are doing these things, because they're looking for workers. The Australian beekeeping industry is really pressed, like other livestock industries, for access to employees. So I would say to anybody looking into beekeeping as a sideline business, get your hat in the ring, work for a commercial beekeeper. You'll just learn so much. And if you want to follow us in real time, Nadine Chapman from Sydney Uni and I and Tocal College put a lot of updates about Plan B through the Extension Oz Professional Beekeeper Network, which is a website for peer-reviewed topical information for queen bee production in part, and any other topic that is of interest to professional beekeepers. So hot topical information, it's peer-reviewed, so it's not just, ask an instant expert online. We've brought the experts together from research, the beekeeping industry, government agencies. They produce these articles. They peer review them together before they go out online. So please follow us on your social media of choice. And if you're in this space where you're an industry leader, expert, government agent, researcher, we do have a few spaces left in our Writing for the Reader development workshop, which is funded by AgriFutures on the 26th of October. So scan this code and I'll get your registration of interest for that half-day workshop. Other than that, thank you guys so much for your time, and would really love if you downloaded our manual and had a peek and let us know what you think. So this is just the other day, we sold our first artificially inseminated queen that I produced last season for Plan Bee, and Slavi and I and our contract beekeepers, we drove them, the research population down to almond pollination this year. So on average, research population produced 9 kilos over, I think it was 9 days of wax honey, canola honey, neighboring canola field, and bees in that 9-day period. So we're collecting heaps of data from the DPI research population of hives from honey production, temperament, disease resistance, and some traits around pollination, pollination-related measurements, because we've got horticulture industry investors that really want to know more about the pollination aspect of honeybees. So thank you guys so much. For our resources that dig deeper into our selection manual, we've got videos as well. So just look up AgriFutures Plan Bee online and you'll be led to our website. So you can look up our video on trait recording, our downloadable trait recording files, Queen ID files, and all of our direct updates are on that AgriFutures website. Otherwise, they come through Professional Beekeepers as well. So thanks so much, and thanks for your attention, everyone.